Nice to meet everybody. Hopefully you enjoy the panel. First question of the day. How do you define and measure retention in your organization, Amanda?
Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda. I'm the Director of Integrated Marketing at First Day. We're a vitamins and supplements company that's rapidly growing about mid 8 figures or so. And yeah, I would say in terms of retention, one of the things that obviously we focus them, like the way that we define it is how often are customers coming back, right? So we've got our one-time purchase customers, how often are they coming back, roughly in a 12-month period or so. But then a huge aspect of it is also our subscriber business. That's a massive portion of our business itself. And how are we keeping them retained? How are we decreasing cancellations as much as possible, even decreasing pauses and skips as much as possible? And we're thinking a lot about that, I would say, from the larger perspective also of how it goes all the way to acquisition. I think a lot of people think of retention only in the post-purchase sense, but we're also thinking about it as like, okay, it might be more expensive to go ahead and acquire a subscriber, but the ability to have that subscriber pay back compared to a one-time purchase customer on a much shorter time frame, and to be able to offset the CAC that you have is also hugely critical. And so we're focusing a lot on subscriber opt-in at that point as well.
That's awesome, Amanda. When I speak with brand leaders all day, every day, I think one of the themes that I hear most is how can we get our acquisition and our retention teams talking and collaborating more, so that goal of acquiring that subscriber where there is built-in retention, that's a key point.
100%.
Sahand, anything to add?
Hi, everyone. I think it's interesting coming from our POV, so just by way of a quick background for everybody, I know it's up there, founder and CEO of Terra Kaffe. What we do is we make best-in-class super automatic bean-to-cup espresso machines that brew anything from an espresso to a cappuccino, touch of a button, and all fresh whole beans, so no pods, capsules, anything like that. Which naturally leads us to having this opportunity where we have this durables and consumables business model. So we built out an ecosystem around the coffee offering, but there's also a fair bit of recurring nature to the care and cleaning products that comes with servicing and maintaining these devices. So we've been focusing since we got our V2, the TKO2 out the door middle of last year, is really kind of an interesting POV for this topic of conversation, because our unlock is really now just focusing on scaling up and maintaining that high engagement with our subscriber base. So we 14x'd our subscriber base last year, with the O2 being the main unlock there. But obviously that doesn't mean we're all done with adoption, but we're really now focusing much more on retention. So we're still in the early days of defining a lot of things and learning, frankly, a lot of what doesn't work. Which has been a very interesting journey, because we've also now really helped define better the personas of customers that we're dealing with, because it isn't very monolithic, which maybe isn't terribly surprising for a lot of people here, because at the end of the day, it is coffee. So it appeals to a lot of different people and a lot of different household types. But ultimately for us, we've done a much better of bifurcating and trifurcating out how the behaviors are, what matters to certain types of cohorts, and how we're adapting our offering to have better retention in the long run.
Thank you, Sahand. And I'm expecting a coffee machine. I'm expecting a coffee machine.
Look under your chair, everyone.
Which retention benefits have you found most effective, be it points, special promotions, cashback, surprise delight? Aidan, I think you have a lot to add to this topic.
For sure. And great to meet everybody by way of introductions. And again, know what's up on the screen. Aidan Thibodeau, CEO at Skio. We simplify subscriptions for a lot of Shopify's fastest growing and most innovative brands. On this one, it's a super interesting topic because I guess a little bit more about my background. was a part of the first 100 employees at Klaviyo, and we did a lot of research into this over there. And I think there's a big kind of trap in the space called point-based loyalty. Sorry if anybody's working for any of those vendors here. You got to get a little bit more modern. But as somebody that's like a power spender with a lot of different brands, you think about this concept of like points. And some of my favorite brands, I think I've probably spent north of, like, not a flex, but $3,000 in like a certain year. And they hit me up for point redemption all the time. And I'm like, hey, this kind of feels like a burden. This isn't easy for me to understand. And then you look at a lot of the brands that are doing this the best out there, and it's cashback, because it's all about like lowering friction to customer, or in our case, subscriber action. And that's cashback is so much easier to understand. So when you're providing that at checkout, making it really accessible and allowing people to update, much, much better. For any of our subscription brands in the room, and we've actually seen people, I think the concept really like started with subscriptions, and we've seen people kind of obfuscate it in a way to one-time purchases, is this concept of surprise and delight. Everybody likes free things. Everybody likes gifts. So if you have somebody, if you're a sneaker company, people probably want to clean their sneakers. They probably want to like, when they're on that order number 2 or that order number 3, I would say note from the founder. It's nice. Use any of like the paper mail providers out there now. They're awesome. But I would say that's kind of like fallen out of style, fallen out of date. And the subscriber or the customer wants something a little bit more. So throw in a note and maybe like a little bottle of like sneaker cleaner for them, like something that your customer is actually going to value. And then on the subscriber level, we were just talking about it in the other room for the subscription brands, and I'll keep this one brief. Anybody that's talking about like order number 1 to order number 2 to order number 3, fall off or churn, involuntary churn, immediate fatigue, things like that, using surprise and delight and saying like, hey, the gifts get bigger and better as you stay subscribed. And maybe you know that like order number 3 is that lock-in point. Like we can get our subscribers to order number 3. We have this subscriber for life. I know that's not real, but statistically speaking, you might want to give like a hoodie, a vessel for them to keep like their subscribable goods in or something like this. It's going to feel like a much more substantial gift, and it's going to drive that sort of buying behavior that you all really want to see for your brands.
Thanks, Aidan. I want to call out for everybody in the room. Naturally, retention has a huge component for subscription brands. It's absolutely crucial. But naturally, probably many of you are not a subscription type of brand. You are a fashion and apparel company. You are something where it isn't a consumable. From my experience working with a lot of brand leaders and operators, there's other real benefits. Think about early access to new drops, to new collections, to new products, or exclusive access to those products. This can be a great way of rewarding the loyalty that you have with those certain customers. And there's lots of ways to go about that.
Can I say something on that?
No.
Yeah, that's right. That checks.
Sure can.
I just think it's interesting just combining, kind of what both of you were just saying there around, I feel like a lot of times we layer in best practices, and I also find that just by virtue, I don't know how early or late stage everyone is here, and I'm sure it's a mixed bag, but like I think when you're on the earlier side, a lot of times we just have to move really, really quickly, and you don't have the luxury of really having the passive time to sit and think what is actually like true to your brand, what's important to your customer base. And that was something that we had to learn the hard way, because I think when we were building out our V2, I mean, obviously there's so much technology and precision baked into this, so naturally we were gravitating towards, from a coffee offering, very premium, high-end brands with all sorts of incredible storytelling and all sorts of meaningful, differentiation, or at least, perceived differentiation in terms of how they were sourcing their coffee, roasting, and so on, when in reality, we ended up launching an insiders group, and we made it very small by design. I mean, we very intentionally rejected a lot of people, and my head of CX loves to say how we have a lower acceptance rate than Harvard. I'm not sure if I want to celebrate that one, but I do get the spirit of it. And we actually just really wanted to, instead of having a huge swath of people, spend a lot more time with the few people that we were talking to. And we very quickly identified something that ended up working incredibly well from the consumable side of our business, which was they didn't really want any of that. it was much simpler. There was a utilitarian customer, which was a much larger percentage of our consumer base, which wanted to have something beautiful on their countertop, wanted something that was convenient. I guess that's also not a huge surprise when your category is called super automatic bean-to-cup espresso machines. It is a marble mouth, or gives you marble mouth, but they wanted convenience, and they were really honestly thinking more about, hearkening their coffee preferences back to like a super dark Italian roast that they tried one time visiting Milan or something like that. And instead of trying to do this super artisanal tastes like elderberry or currants, just doing a middle of the fairway, good value for money offering, and then going even darker than a dark roast was exactly what they were looking for. And the reason we say consumables and not subscription is because of what you were just saying. They do come back, and the repurchase behavior is amazing. A lot of them just don't want to, at least in the early days, they didn't want to have a subscription sign up, where there was just this initial trepidation they had to get over to get to that point, and we had to learn that the hard way. So
you had to build the trust.
Exactly.
Thank you, Sahand. Excuse me. This actually ties a little bit into this. How might community building and VIP customers fit in as a retention lever? Amanda, I'd love to hear from you on this.
Yeah. I think with our VIP customers, I think the biggest thing that we've learned is actually take the time to listen to your customers and use that intel. It sounds so simple, yet I think similarly to what Sahand was saying, when you're building a business, you're just like so heads down, so focused, you're so in the weeds on things, and being able to take the time to actually run a customer survey or to do customer call downs, which we do frequently, to actually understand what your customer values, because it's really easy to have those blinders on and to be like completely focused on CRO tests or email subject lines, and you're assuming that the customer is looking at every single thing or digesting every single thing, when in reality, it's like a huge wave of information and you're competing with 800 other items at the same time. They're only gathering certain pieces of the story and what your brand is at any point. And so being able to actually understand what do they like about the product and why have they chosen the product itself. We actually recently had a leadership on-site in Austin, and we invited a VIP customer to lunch with all of our executives. She's so brave, because I, as a customer, would never do something like that. And it was amazing because, while she was able to tell us some incredible aspects of her story and how our product has changed a lot of the nutritional deficiencies that her teenage daughter has, she also was brutally honest about certain things. Like, she did not like one of the new flavors that we put out, said it was absolutely disgusting. We actually had a new sample for her to try in front of all of us. We were like holding our breath, so nervous. But that type of intel and being able to get information from her of like, okay, if we did this type of promotion, or if we did this type of surprise and delight, we did these types of sachets, like, would you be interested in those? And obviously it's only an N of one in those scenarios, but being able to get that type of information helps to shortcut so many of the CRO tests and A/B tests that we can do, because that list is truly endless, right? And it helps us to prioritize which tests we actually want to run with after the fact.
Where'd you go to lunch in Austin?
I don't even remember.
Was it barbecue?
No, it wasn't. It was Mediterranean, but it was delicious.
That might have been a mess. That's an incredibly high value customer, regardless of their spend and their purchase behavior, because they're giving you that honest feedback. I think it ties well into, how do we create offers specific for such high LTV customers, not just high value, like what Amanda was describing. Aidan, you want to give us some insight there?
Yeah, happy to. I don't know. I'll probably hand off to them as they know this one a little bit better. But I actually want to go back to something Sahand said and talk about a concept that we talk about today called authenticity of the offer. And it's essentially, and I think going back to the last question too, which is call your customers. So I did a lot of D2C consulting like back in the day, more on the Klaviyo side of things. And it's like, in today's world, everybody's so focused on like AI and scalability and how can I report on this, or I need to take these sort of insights to my boss in order to validate X sort of like decision or thing that I want to spend money on. And one of the brands that was really interesting that we worked with recently is a brand called Well Bell. And when we look at a lot of like Wellbell's earliest customers and their highest spending customers, these are people that got a call with the founder very early on. And the founder has like a health and a wellness background. And what was very interesting is like that's not a traditional benefit. That's not something that you think about like, hey, how are we creating this offer that's a free XYZ or expedited shipping or something like that? And where we see a lot of other brands missing the mark is just this copy and paste strategy that like I know is really easy to do in e-commerce today, but that's where like you come off as completely tone deaf. So another really good example is like Everyday Dose. So Everyday Dose, really cool mushroom coffee brand out there. For anybody that wants to see a community, go check these guys out. I signed up, just like test subscription, and I was like, well, I kind of wanted to check the hype with mushroom coffee, and I got this invite to a community. They have about like 50,000 people, whatever it is, talking about mushroom coffee, how they like to prepare it, like health, wellness, all this stuff in their life. But they just monitor those chats and they monitor those conversations, and they're able to essentially go in and say like, hey, we saw you had a bad experience, or we saw you're not using the community, or you're not accessing these benefits. What are things that we can give you, be it tangible or non-tangible, that are going to help you form that closer bond with the brand? I think that's where we see brands like nailing it or missing the mark today. Essentially like TLDR, don't copy and paste, and just go ask your customers, like on those customer calls, call your first 100 customers, or if you're a big brand, go back and call 100 random customers from your first 1,000 and say, what can I do today to make you feel closer to the brand? That's what you should be offering them as benefits, not what your competition's doing.
I love that. And it ties also into, I think we only have a few more minutes before we open it up for Q&A, but this is an important topic in terms of, pardon me, channels for, the channels we're leveraging for communication with customers and frequency of that communication. Sahand, I'd love to hear from you on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I think Amanda's probably going to have the stack built out a lot more polished manner. I think that we do all the kind of standard areas of touch points that you would imagine from, email marketing or, touch points around, SMS, what have you, the CRO around the first purchase, it going into, any returning customers. I think one angle that is, unique to us that we've really made a particular focus of really drilling down on to show up as a surprise and delight and being able to have a unique touch point is with our V2, it's a connected device. So we do have a mobile app that you can integrate with your experience, and we intentionally designed the product so that you don't have to use this. So God forbid your Wi-Fi goes out if you can't brew a coffee in the morning. Like, we knew that was obviously just a no-go, and we're not going to remotely even consider that for our user experience. It is crazy to me that around 65 to 70% on any given week of our customers are engaging with the app on a daily basis. So that is way higher than we initially anticipated. For some people, it's kind of the stats that they get. For some people, it's the gamification. Some of them, it's the alerts. Some of it's the customization, what have you. There's, can run through the gamut. But that was an opportunity for us from the touch display or the HMI of the device going into the mobile experience to being able to show up, whether that's informative for them or, providing a special offering. That's been really interesting. So if we release a new coffee, if we're, testing something out and we want to just send it to a few people to give it a try and get some insights and feedback, that's been really valuable for us in terms of continuing the relationship. But I will say for us, there is a very natural long tail relationship with the user just by virtue of the product and how it's used.
Amanda, you have something to add.
Yeah, I would say in terms of like our different customer segmentation, 3 main buckets that we're focusing on, and I would say each of them have a different goal and a different frequency that we've identified. So obviously with prospective customers, you see a massive drop off kind of from those initial time points, right? Like the first 12 hours, 24 hours, then 7 days, 14 days, et cetera, you just see a major drop off in conversion. And so with those, we're much higher frequency with our abandoned carts and things like that. We're focusing a lot on subscriber opt-in. And one of the interesting things that we've kind of realized is that even in being able to do product launches and bundling our products together, because we've got a 15% subscription discount, we actually see that customers are more likely to convert on these bundle products because the discount amount is higher, which is not something that I think people would always assume, it's a higher AOV, it's harder to convert. And then the second one is like our returning one-time purchase customers. And that is being able to focus on like the post-purchase experience of, all right, like our product is, we sell vitamin gummies in like a 30-day supply. Are you actually using it consistently, right? Like how can we get you as a customer to take it day after day, actually build it into your habit so that you reach a replenishment standpoint after that 30 days, and then we're hitting you at those kind of core points of reminders. And then the third category is our subscribers. And with that, it's actually really interesting because we've learned that contacting our subscribers is not a zero risk situation. When we had done a couple of product launches, we were initially driving our CTAs to the portal itself. We're like, oh, right, of course, that's going to be the easiest option is to get a subscriber to add a new item to their existing subscription. And we actually saw cancellation rates increase from doing that. We changed our CTAs over to just starting a new subscription on our website, and we saw far higher success there in terms of conversion because pretty much every reminder or every email that we send, if it doesn't have value, if it's not like a tactical upsell or cross-sell of some sort, holds risk to it. And so we're very, very cautious with how often we're bugging them and how often we're reminding them of things.
I wonder, I feel like there is almost like an over-indexing on the early stage where like it kind of goes back to what you're saying in terms of like you covet that end user relationship, especially those first customers, and then like you're almost like overly precious with the relationship and you don't want to do more like transaction oriented communication or outreach. And then on the later stage, you're, just pounding people with constant frequency on all channels and it's all, heavily utilitarian. Like, do you find that there's that over-indexing, like the early stage side, like it's all brand storytelling? You're like, no, you can reach out to them. You're leaving money on the table. And on the later stage side, like you can't forget the importance of the narrative and the storytelling and all of those things.
Yeah. I think it's a balance with all of these things because I think like in the early stages, so much of it is focused on helping them to understand like the value of the product. And then I would say like later on though, I don't know. Sometimes it's also like we just have to get over ourselves to an extent, right? Because it's like at the end of the day, we want to bring people into our community. We want them to love our product. And there are always going to be people like that. But then at the same time, some people are just like, stop contacting me. Like, I've already got a subscription with you. Like, stop bugging me about things, right? And so being able to know, like, is this piece of content like actually adding value? And then what is the actual goal of it, right? Is it truly just to build a certain aspect of our brand and an understanding of something? Or is it, okay, there's another product, and we try to be really focused with how we do our product launches and our extensions that they always can work in tandem with like our core products. So our core product is our multivitamin, and we released a pre, pro, and postbiotic that is meant to actually be taken with our multivitamin and then have like exponential benefits in terms of the absorption of the multivitamin. And so being able to like add value to the thing that they're already taking is like where we've seen success. But it's not purely like, just buy this random thing or try this or join this, and really making sure there's value in there when we're contacting them. So it's a balance, I would say.
It's super similar. We built our V2. I know we have to get to Q&A, but the last thing
I'm good.
I think for like when we built the TKO2, like we actually literally built the product so that there was IP that we built into basically the hopper grinder subassembly. There's a way to know exactly what you were going through so that we could show up as a surprise and delight, or frankly, just as a problem solver. Instead of trying to push, like there's so many marketplace coffee people out there just pushing and pushing and pushing. And ultimately a lot of them kind of go the way of Blue Apron. And the main thing that you're at, and no shots fired at Blue Apron, but it's just like the challenges with everybody, especially on the consumable side, is like, you're dealing with overstock and you're dealing with undersupply. The worst thing that you could ever have happen is 0 bags of coffee, no coffee at home in your cupboards. Like, I remember one of our advisors, she told me, she was like, I'd literally rather run out of toilet paper than coffee in my home. And I was like, damn, that's a testimonial. But number one, that's the biggest pain point. It is a burden when the customer relies on you because you need to show up for them. But it is also a privilege. That's how you have the lock-in. And then on the other side is, they don't want to feel like you're just getting pummeled with communication and requests for continued transaction, but then that goes back to the product expansion and offering and giving more value to the end user. But yeah, sorry. Go.
All good. Thank you all.
Did that eat up the whole Q&A?
Do we have some time for some questions?
We don't have time anymore, unfortunately, but you'll be...
We've got to have a couple minutes.
We are very behind, unfortunately, but...
One question from the audience.
These folks will be around. So, please, save your questions. I know you have...
That's the hook.
But can we give a round of applause, please? Thank you. That was awesome.
Sorry.
We appreciate it.